I've learned some unexpected things about art during the last few months, which is kind of surprising, since I've hardly done any art and I haven't finished making a single video until now either. If you've noticed that I'm drawing with two hands here, this is a clue about the brief tale of woe I'm about to tell. Many years ago I got hit with chronic fatigue. This took my animation career and just about everything else in my life and knocked it on the head, which got me down a fair bit. A lot, actually. I even lost the desire to draw. I can handle the fatigue better now thanks to a few years of living with it, and I slowly got back into the art stuff, which you can see, although it's still not easy. Then, in 2017, my left arm started causing trouble. Since I'm left-handed, this was a problem. It cut back my artwork from not a whole lot to really very little. Then, while doing some basic exercises to help my arm, I got some other mystery injury that didn't seem interested in healing, although it did heal eventually. At the time, I made the mistake of letting it all get me down, so I was all about what I couldn't do instead of what I could do. It wore me down enough to go from doing very little to doing hardly anything at all. Fortunately, I didn't quite get to doing absolute zero, which is where the good news comes in, and the learning of unexpected things. One thing I started during this time was a daily sketch. The only reason I did this is because my little journal happens to have a blank space at the bottom of each page, which just looked wrong without a drawing in it. Some of the sketches only take a few seconds, and I doubt many would take more than half a minute, so it's no big deal for my poor left arm. Some of them don't turn out very well, and most of them are very silly, but the end result is that I've done close to a drawing a day, even during a time of very low motivation, which is more than I did when my morale was higher. So what's the secret? One factor may be having very low expectations, making it more like play than a project, which takes out the stress. Another is that the pen is already in my hand and the space is right there in front of me, so it's super easy. A bonus point for the pen is that I can't erase any mistakes, so I just draw it and leave it. A way of doing a similar thing without the journal could be just to leave a small sketchbook next to the bed or desk with a blank page facing up and a pen or pencil sitting on it, so it's just asking for something to be drawn on it. Then it gets flipped over to a blank page before going to sleep, so it's ready for the next day. It's fun, it's easy, and it's a small achievement to finish off the day with. Speaking of fun, easy and low stress, I joined a small art and craft group. Originally I did this mostly to support the people from church who are running it, but it's ended up being a good experience just for myself as well. One reason is that it gets me out of the house and in the company of other people in a relaxed environment, which is mostly what the group is for, but it also takes the pressure off creativity. Somebody else takes care of the ideas and I can just experiment along with everybody else, not worrying too much about how it turns out. A lot of artists are fine with this kind of attitude on their own, and I used to be able to just play around with art a long time ago myself. But at the moment I need help to do it, which is a good thing to know. Once again, I'm not the only one who struggles with this, so I'm kind of curious about who else has the same issue and what they do about it. Now we'll get on to a very practical art principle I picked up, which you might find interesting too, especially if some materials just aren't working for you and you're pretty sure they should. Thanks to my left arm, I've mostly given up drawing with a pencil, which is a major loss for me since it's possibly my favourite art tool. I can still use pencils a tiny bit, which I'm obviously doing in this video, but you'll also see me drawing with a brush pen. What you can't see is the fact that I tried out a brush pen or two a couple of years earlier, but I couldn't seem to get along with them, so I gave up. Now I had a reason to try again, since I figured a brush pen would be easier on the arm than a pencil thanks to needing a lot less force, and while it might be no good for sketching or shading, it was still a way to draw. So I found an old brush pen and gave it another go, and got a pleasant surprise when it turned out to be much easier than before. I think this was actually because of my dodgy arm, which I find interesting. The main difference was that I was careful to avoid making my problems worse, so I held the pen fairly loosely and drew slowly and gently. Almost straight away I started getting lines that I liked, which was great. In hindsight, I guess it's old news that trying different ways of using the same art materials and tools can help get the best out of them. It might be like swimming, where one person just forces their way along while somebody else feels the water and works with it instead of against it. I have no doubt it works like that with paints and brushes and clay and even some digital painting tools, but I hadn't paid much attention to it until I was forced to. It gets me wondering how many art materials we've given up on because we were too impatient to slow down or too cautious to speed up. It might be worth exploring a bit more one day, but right now I'll move on to a little surprise I got to do with shading. During my first attempt at making this video a while back, I discovered that I could get decent results with pencil shading with my right hand, even without any practice. I think it's because shading doesn't need to have precise edges, and it can be built up slowly, so it doesn't need as much physical control. Basically, the hard part with shading is knowing what should be light and what should be dark. the physical act of shading isn't all that difficult, so you don't have to fall too far behind if it comes to completely switching hands. Line work is a different story. Drawing lines with your opposite hand is a lot harder than shading, but with a lot of practice, most people should be able to adapt really well. Even some famous artists have had to start all over again with their other arm and ended up right back on track, with their skills just as good as before. But in those cases, it's not really starting all over again, is it? As long as the brain is still fairly healthy, we may have to learn another way of doing things and train a different set of muscles, but anything we ever learned about art itself should still be there. We might even discover something new or at least grow as a person in some way. There are many stories of people who had to change direction in a big way because of injury or unexpected responsibilities or whatever else, and they ended up heading off on a new path that was even better than the old one. On the other hand, there are stories where the new path isn't so great, but there are still bits of knowledge and character that can help someone make the best of it. That's another thing I've learned more about. The enormous number of people who create art in spite of disabilities or pain or other limitations that get in their way. It's surprising how common it is, even with very successful people where you'd never guess it to look at their work. Just on the subject of switching hands, the famous illustrator Frank Frazetta had to switch after some strokes paralysed his right arm. An illustrator who lived a lot earlier, Daniel Vierge, also helped improve how illustrations and photos were printed. He had a stroke at age 30 and then learned to draw with his left hand and continued on. I should be clear though, I'm not saying everything is fine if we just look at it the right way. Pain is still pain and loss is still loss, and some things can't be replaced no matter what. The emotional challenges can be even bigger than the physical ones, and no matter how much we might grow in our character, the trade-off may never seem like a good one. All I'm suggesting is that whenever we have to change direction, we rarely have to start from absolutely nothing. We nearly always carry something with us that can help us along the new path, and we might even gain something in exchange for whatever we lost. Sometimes the trade-off is worth it, even if we can't see it at the time. Sometimes.